Welcome to the Future of Tourism podcast. I'm David Peacock.
Stop owning your own content.
Young leaders are stepping up.
Bring everyone to the table
and imagine their world anew.
You can have EDI, you can have sustainability of all sorts, even a living wage or affordable housing in any destination, but you can't do any of that without engagement. The first annual PACE Forum in February was a huge step forward for the industry. It was a big moment in the evolution of community and stakeholder engagement. This bedrock piece for advancing partnership and community engagement has finally come into its own. More than a decade of perseverance, vision, and hard work by many across the industry has made this event possible. Two of the people instrumental in PACE's evolution are Polly Flackman and Judy Cullen. Polly is the VP of Community Engagement at Visit Phoenix. She's an innovator and a broad thinker and a strong advocate for the move to engagement-based destination management. Judy Cullen retired as VP of Community and Partner Development at Salt Lake in January, but couldn't say no to keeping a hand in the PACE movement and was on hand to see it launch in February. Good morning, Polly. How are you? Where are you? What's it like?
Good morning, David. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's a pretty good week to be in Phoenix, given NCAA Final Four is coming to our beautiful city, and looking forward to just a real busy week with everything that's going on.
Well, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Judy, how are you? Where are you? What's it like?
Hi, David. Good morning. I'm in Salt Lake City. We are having another record year of snowfall. As a matter of fact, out of the top 5 resorts with regards to snow total, 4 of Salt Lake's and Utah's ski resorts made the top 5. So that tells you what kind of a great year we're going. I keep reminding myself that we need the water. So when we have these gray, rainy, snowy days, I'm trying to stay positive about it. But it's all good. Yes, I'm retired, but I don't feel like I'm retired, and that's a good thing. So I'm hoping to stay engaged with this amazing PACE Forum now and into the future. So thanks for letting us talk about it today.
Hey, I'm totally glad you could both be here. Thanks a ton for being here. And in all sincerity, I'm going to say this. This may have been one of the best meetings I've been to in a year. We've all been waiting for engagement to come into its own, but this was really something monumental. So let's start here. I'll throw it to both of you. The listener has heard about Partnership Alignment and Community Engagement Forum. They maybe don't know about it. So what is it? Let's start with that. Back and forth between the two of you, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, well, it's a gathering of partnership, community engagement, and membership colleagues that across the country that are there to really learn from each other, share best practices, and really get deep into how do we really engage our communities, engage our membership, and find the help our DMOs find the importance of what it is that we do on a day-to-day. Because I think that's I think some DMOs are still struggling with it really is a pillar of what a DMO is and our work. It's always been important, but I think today, as you said, David, critically important.
And if I can piggyback on that, David, I mean, with all of the other issues and arms, for lack of a better term, of DMOs, you cannot be successful unless you have community engagement and buy-in. So unless the people in the communities in which you live understand and support what you do, it's going to be for naught unless you are out there in the community and showing that you truly do make a difference with what we do.
So that's the part that sort of warmed my heart in Madison. That and the fact that in the middle of February we had almost a 70-degree day. That warmed my heart as well. But the next morning it was minus 15 again. So that warms my heart to get a whole bunch of people in a room who actually understand and care that stakeholder engagement is one of the most critical things we need to do in the next decade. It's something that I feel as DMOs, sometimes we have sort of a facile relationship with it. We think we're really well engaged, but when we go and look at it, we're not all that engaged. The beginning of PACE starts more than a decade ago. I think, one of the milestones for me was when Jack joined DEI and started talking about community shared values. And I thought that was an interesting beginning to this. That was only 2017. So tell me a little bit about how PACE evolved. Where did it come from? It started out as a committee inside DI, didn't it?
It was, I'll let Polly do the real back history, but we used to meet with a group called shirt sleeves. And that term came from, it was a group that rolled up their shirt sleeves and got to work. But the focus was really on membership at that time, because that really was the model that most DMOs were using. And so as membership has morphed into partnership, and partnership has kind of transformed into engagement, we felt as a group that it was time to expand and broaden what this group of colleagues did and the importance of what we do.
Yeah. So it was actually, it originated in New Orleans. So there was a membership director back at that time in 1984, a matter of fact, that came to their CEO and said, "Hey, I really need to be learning from others in the community of CVBs at that time. And I'm wondering if I can gather some people." And he's like, "Absolutely." So 6 or 7 folks from DMOs, Colorado Springs, New Mexico, and others came together. And as Judy said, rolled up their shirt sleeves and just started to share ideas. And it really grew from there. And when I started in 2002 at Visit Spokane, that was my first exposure. And I've not missed one of these gatherings since that time. It's been like, I really would say the growth that I've had in my career, the success that I've had has really come from this group of professionals that are willing to share their secrets, their successes and failures, so that we can all learn from each other.
And Polly, I think that word share is so key to the success of this conference, because really it's a collaboration. It's not one person, casting pearls upon the waters. Everyone is sharing, to your point, successes, failures, and how to be better and how to move forward. I've never worked with a group of individuals before that were so collaborative. And I'm sure, David, you observed at that conference, is like, it was pretty much nonstop talking, sharing, collaborating the entire time. There was no one holding their cards close to their vest that I'm not going to share this secret. It was like, let us share what we do. That has been so great. And that's so important in terms of growing.
Well, and it did come off as, it didn't seem like your annual sort of showcase meeting. It came off as a think tank. And I mean, I'll just recap sort of the major headings in planning: DMO funding and revenue sources, an absolute shirt sleeves discussion. Where are we going with this? What happens next? The future of the membership model, maybe one of the most contentious things we've got to deal with. And we saw lots of input at the conference. Membership models that were pay to play, membership models that had very specifically eschewed pay to play and shifted back to an everyone inclusive model, and strong arguments on both sides. No one coming out as the dominant model, but a definite shift. Growth tracking and retention. Interesting. It's something that used to get shunted over to membership. Pay attention. It's become more important than ever, right? It's a KPI of our engagement. Community engagement perceptions. Are we kidding ourselves? Are we telling the truth? What's really going on in our markets? And I mean, the big one there for me is always the same thing. I so worry that we are very, very confident that we're so well engaged in our markets. And when you go out and ask somebody for help, you realize, oh, we're not as engaged as we think. And then marketing, branding, communications, obviously. Probably one of the best things I saw there was a young guy from your organization who spoke on adding value to the data process so that it can be delivered to your stakeholder partners in a way that creates an ongoing relationship. What was his name?
Eric Kerr, he's our Vice President of Insights and Business Analysis, and he's been instrumental, I think, for us. And when you talk about community engagement in the community wants to know what it is that we're doing. They're very interested in tourism, the types of events and that we engage in. Everybody wants to know, how'd the Super Bowl go? How was the Final Four? I mean, they're interested in the conferences that come, and whether it be technology conferences, that sort of thing. And so I think with Eric's, Eric came to us actually as an intern and after college, and has grown this department for us. We have hotel development folks. We have folks that are just in the community looking at developing businesses that are outside of the tourism area, but are asking Eric, tell me about how things are going in tourism. It's obviously, it's a big part of our economy here in Phoenix, in Greater Phoenix, and just having his fingers through Symphony, working with Symphony, tourism economics, all the folks that are helping us really get a gauge on what's happening in our community. So our corporate community is listening to what Eric has to say, and then our members, they are not able to get their hands on the kind of information we're able to get our hands on, and then his ability to actually explain it, and that is.
How old was Eric when he came to you guys? Not to be ageist.
I know. I want to say I was not here then, but I want to say Eric was probably 22 years old.
Yeah. So
yeah.
He told a story at the forum. It was really fun. He said, I came in, and I've had a lot of consultants talk to me with the same kind of story. I came in, and I asked where the data was, and they pointed to a drawer, and in it was massive amounts of data studies, all of which were valuable, but none of which have been made actionable. And he said he sat down and he started to plug away at making data a valuable part of the action plan of engagement. Judy, you did that for more than a decade at Salt Lake. What's go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, utilizing data, number one, helps you craft your message. It also helps you with being accurate in terms of sometimes there's community sentiment that is not accurate, and data can prove. I'll throw an example out there. We have these wonderful ski resorts, but sometimes it can take a while to get to them because the canyons are narrow and it can be a long drive. And there was a sentiment that, we're over tourists. Well, using data, we were able to show that 70% of the traffic up the canyons was actually locals. It wasn't visitors. So that helps. And also it helps our members, to your point and to Polly's point, in terms of even something as simple as knowing when to staff appropriately. Mm-hmm. When are the need periods? So it's so important. And also providing access to our partners and members of that data also is very important, and is in a way kind of an engagement in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's interesting. And Eric's look at the data was refreshing because he looked at it with fresh eyes. He literally said, I'm not from this industry. I looked at this data and I thought, how do I find a way to deliver value to stakeholders? Now, the question in my mind is always why? Why do you want to deliver values to stakeholders? And I go back to that point we opened on. Right now, I believe we're about 5 years behind where we should be in stakeholder engagement. If you look at Europe, they've moved ahead much more quickly. They're not as far ahead on EDI, but on the engagement piece, they really are. Why is engagement so important right now? And put the question to both of you. Answer it any way you like.
Mm-hmm. I'll jump in. I think engagement is so important right now because there is a mood or a temperament out there that perhaps what we do doesn't provide any benefit. And so if you're not engaged with the community, they can't know what you're doing and what the importance is. One of the messages at Visit Salt Lake that we share, which really hits home is the tax revenue that a visitor brings in actually accounts for over $1,500 worth of tax relief for every household in Salt Lake County. Well, that as an individual or a household, that resonates with me. But if people don't know that, if they don't know what you do and why you do it, then you're never going to get your message across. And as people become more scattered, I think it's really extremely important to be engaged, but also be authentically engaged in the community. And that means more than just showing up at the chamber's annual meeting. That means having a seat at the table where it counts so you can share what you do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
No, please. I was going to throw it to you, Paulie. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, exactly what Judy said. And I will add that one of the things that I notice is, you can be in a lot of places, but when you go back and talk to the people, whether it's at, a downtown partnership luncheon or one of the many events that we go to, when you ask them what it is that we do, what do we do at Visit Phoenix? What is our role? What is our job? They cannot answer that.
I think that's a really important observation.
Yeah.
I think it's tremendously important. Like, we're talking about being engaged, and you're talking about being acknowledged as existing.
Yeah. And it's true, because I think, and we all say this in the industry, it's tourism, people look at tourism and it's just happening. It just happens all by itself. They don't really think about it as a business at all. And when you begin to engage in the community and you, as Judy said, authentically care about the groups, spend the time in the group to make a difference, and they begin asking you the questions, how can I help you? How can I be of best service? Tell me about what you're facing in your role here. What is it that we can do? Because we understand that tourism is bringing us, especially, and of course, this is after many conversations as you become friends with these folks, they understand that, the beautiful botanical gardens that we have and these mega events that we have here and the conferences and all that, they wouldn't be here. These beautiful restaurants and resorts and all of that are here because of tourists, and they're enjoying that. So that, having those conversations and really deepening them. And I think that it's been since COVID, I feel like, Judy, and wouldn't you say, I think in COVID, we had nothing but time to get to know and engage with our members. And I was so fortunate at Visit Phoenix that we chose to keep our staff to be able to have these kinds of conversations with our members. So our days were spent reaching out to our members, asking what was happening, how could we be of help. That's really when we started engaging more in our community and created some fundraisers for us individually. It was our restaurant folks, because they were having such a challenging time. And so we created a fundraiser that would help those frontline folks cover their bills and that sort of thing. And, it just kept opening up. And I think our organization, our board, began to see the real benefit of that. So
I'm totally there with you. So if we hadn't had COVID, we'd be in a very, very different place right now, because you're right. It had made the necessity for us to deliver value to members on things we weren't used to. We had to literally come up with ways to deliver values to keep the lights on, right?
But David, if I can add to that, it also became much more apparent during COVID that we wanted to deliver value to members, but it was important to deliver to the community at large, because everyone was suffering. And I think COVID really helped expand the concept of membership more to partnership, because I know with Visit Salt Lake, we had, every other week, if not more so, we had huge webinars that everyone was invited to, because we were all fighting the same battle. And it clicked then that it's not just about membership. It's about community. It's about partnership. And during that time, I was hired for partner development, and it became very clear, no, it's much more than partner, it's community and partner development. And I think a lot of DMOs realized that they had to expand their focus because the community really is a part of your, quote, the larger membership.
So let's talk about that. Let's unpack for a second, because I was watching you in 2020 as you dealt with membership. Here's the thing. I'm going to say this, and you guys can hate me for it if you like, but membership is an unsung area of the organization, and so many of our peers in the membership area really do, not begrudgingly, but they talk about being sort of the left to the back end of considerations and strategy.
Mhm.
So along comes 2020, all of that changes. I watch membership departments probably struggle more than anybody else because they went from being not treated with the kind of respect that I believe they necessarily absolutely deserve to being right in the middle of it and ask for all sorts of solutions and things. Judy, you live this. I watched you live this in Salt Lake. And it was fascinating to see the importance of membership sort of reach that pinnacle where everybody realized how important it was. Is it maintaining? Are we going to be able to continue that? Is membership just growing in importance? Is it getting the bandwidth it deserves, the attention it deserves?
I think it depends on your definition of membership. So if you look at membership incorporating partnership, then I absolutely believe that it's growing. When I look at membership, I think of dues, and it's a revenue stream. It's not necessarily, depending on your dues structure, a huge revenue stream. But I think that if you look at the overall picture of membership, it's increasingly important on a variety of levels. And I think that more and more DMOs are recognizing that. Certainly Visit Salt Lake has recognized it. And I know that Visit Phoenix has too, wouldn't you say, Polly?
I would.
Well, hang on. With the two of you in the driver's seat, I'm not surprised on either of those questions. Can we maintain it? Can we maintain it elsewhere? No, I think it's changed significantly. And I do see it getting a lot more traction. I do see a lot of name changes. It's gone from membership to engagement. So we're seeing all of that. But I think there was a collective sigh of relief in that room, right near the beginning when we all realized we're all here and this is actually working. And now we're talking about those things that we don't often get to talk about back in our own organizations, which is an expansive model of membership and a model of membership that has a future perfect scenario of engaged communities taking a very active role in tourism. Is that where we're headed, Polly?
I think so. I think if you look at you have to look at your entire community. Your community is delivering the promises that we are making. And I think you can't just say those that are members are delivering to our visitors. It's just not true. It's just not true. It was never true, matter of fact. But that's where our narrow view was, because we were really just thinking about money.
Your revenue.
Revenue. And you look at today, and I don't even believe that people in the membership departments thought of it only as revenue. I think we always knew it was, but what about our community? Yeah, we need the money, but what about everybody? I mean, there's like, we have some of the best restaurants, James Beard Award winners, that are not a part of our membership. And I think it just began to expand to say, you know what, we're going to do some special things for our members, but that doesn't mean we're not engaging everyone else. And how are we going to do that? There's so much value for the DMO to do that. You're teaching somebody about who we are, what we do. You're not asking for anything. You're showing value. And I think, it's just going to continue to grow in that way. As Judy said, some DMOs I think are still, depending on their leadership, very focused on, well, your job is to make money.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm right, and I think I am, that if you're going to stay in that lane, you are not going to find success.
Right.
Well, and Polly, if I can jump in, if you look at just members, they don't define your community. There's so much more to a community than members. Certainly that, to your point, Polly, that's a focus because you want to take care of them, but that's not who you are. That's not what Phoenix is about just based on your members. So if you cannot expand your focus to include everyone for what each one brings to the table, the benefit that every type of business brings to the table, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Judy, because when we talk about sort of expanding membership, a lot of senior management gets worried about mission creep, right? What are we going to do with all these members? And you look at them and say, we're going to practice for the day that we have to serve the entire community, which is yesterday.
Right.
If we can't do stakeholders, how the heck are we going to do community, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So this has to go forward. It has to survive. The iteration in Madison was brilliant. It was one of those wonderful things. And there's a picture on the staircase at the very end. I'll try and throw it in the blog. It's so great to see this come from a shirt sleeves. And I say a decade, but it turns out it's more like 2 decades. Holy smokes, Polly. I had no idea. I thought you were so much younger than that. Jeepers.
Sweet talker.
Yeah, there it is.
Right.
So how do we go forward? What's next? What's on the horizon? I know you don't have the exact plans for the next event, but this really does have to it has to be nurtured and incubated. And I got to thank you both for doing that. And I know there's a whole team of people, and we'll talk about those at the end. We can do some shout outs to people who really help make this happen. But what do we need to do next, and what happens next?
We're feel very gratified that when we sent out a survey to the participants and asked if anyone would be interested in hosting or a part of the committee next year, with the number of responses that were an enthusiastic yes. So that speaks to us and says that people do want to see this go forward. And our plan is to make this an annual event, just like the annual Simple View conference, just like annual DI. This is going to become a standalone event that we want to see happen every year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think too, we were in Madison, and Ellie, who is the CEO of Madison, actually came from membership. And personally, as I look at the qualities that are necessary for success in a DMO as we move forward, and again, always true, relationships, engagement, being known in the community, all those things are very, very important. I really would like to see more folks that are in the partnership, community engagement, membership realm find their way to the top to be a CEO, because I think we're really being trained for what is important and where we can take DMOs in the future. Our conference, we had I want to say 75 at least of the 120-ish people that were there. This was their first year in the department, probably the first year in a DMO.
Well, and that's really speaks to an important point, which is the nurture piece of this, because we've only just gone from the 1950 style of membership model that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And all of these people are coming to this with their, some of them have been doing it for years, like both of you, and some of them have just come to it. But it's really important that we create a safe space where they can experiment with ideas, where they can fail quickly. And I got that. And I hope that next year we can, I guess next year is this year already. Yeah. I hope we can preserve that in the next one, because it was really fun. I get to work, in incubators, and this was as close as I've come to a theme specific incubator. It was like sitting in a big incubator with 70 or 80 people. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, and if I can just give a shout out to Simple View, because this was we were restarting, shall I just say, because shirt sleeves obviously had been in place before, but we were reimagining it. And Simple View stepped up to the plate and said, this is a great idea. We want to come on board as a sponsor, because quite honestly, not knowing how many people were going to register, how this was all going to look, we wouldn't have been able to pull it off from a financial standpoint had it not been for Simple View's financial support, but also being there and seeing what we were putting together. That was huge for us. And so I just wanted, on behalf of all of us, I wanted to thank you and Simple View.
Well, and I know Simple View is involved really all the way back to shirt sleeves, but I will tell you, stakeholder engagement is one of our pillars. I mean, we are working on products and services that will actually facilitate that whole value distribution thing. And why products and services? Because that's how we create engagement through delivering those things in value. But this was an important one for us. And it was like waiting for a dam to burst. I've been waiting for 3 or 4 years. Would this happen at DI? Would it be, we've got the I think I did this in the presentation. We have the advocacy forum and we have the EDI forum. How is it that the bedrock piece, the absolute bedrock of this engagement piece waits until those other two are done before it comes into its own? And I guess in some sense it's because we take it for granted, which is, to go back to the COVID example, it's a good thing we stopped taking membership and alignment and engagement for granted. I love Jack's treatise on community shared values. I call it stakeholder engagement, but it's been a decade we've been chipping away at that. This is a major move, a major pivot, a seismic event in the idea of engagement. And I really do believe it has to happen next year.
Well, fortunately, you had a group of very stubborn individuals who said, we're not going to let this go by the wayside, and just decided to make it happen. I mean, that's how passionate this group of professionals is that, on their own time, with everything else that we had on our plates, this was important enough for us to just say, darn it, we're going to do it and make it happen. We did.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that group of professionals, because there's a lot of people here who deserve a shout out. This is a long time in the making. I know we're not going to hit everybody, but let's just make sure we hit a few people and recognize their contribution to this, because that'll bring them in the door to work with us next year too. So
well, I mean, of course, Visit Madison, Maureen Martin was integral in the success of this. I mean, had they not stepped up, Madison took some real risks in having us there. And kind of giving us several of their staffers to make this happen. So Maureen and her team were just amazing. And then we had a huge group, a huge committee. Brian from San Diego did such a great job. Greg from Rochester. I hate to even start naming names because there's so many. It's like the Oscars.
Come on, knock them off the top of your head as fast as you can. Come on. Who else?
Yeah, Judy.
Let's see.
Think about all those meetings. Think about those 7 o'clock at night meetings.
Well, Emily Chirac from Visit Kissimmee. Polly already mentioned. Greg DeLuca did a great DEI panel presentation. Gail Lee, Phil Burnt from Visit Door County. Everyone was willing to take one piece of this and expand upon it and make it better. And I'm trying to think who else is there, Polly. I mean, we were on calls with them. Diane Angeline, who actually had just recently changed jobs, but got permission to still participate in PACE. Very, very important. I mean, we had such a great group of individuals that all participated.
Claire from Washington, D.C.
Claire, yes.
MC and Lauren from Visit Denver. Gosh, so you can see it takes a village to pull this off. And thankfully, everybody just put in the hard work and built out the content and started reaching out to those that were attending to see what expertise. I'm sure there was so much expertise in that room that we didn't even tap into, that I'm looking forward to tapping into next year as we build out the content and that for this conference.
I thought of two more, Jordan Engerman from Choose Chicago and Kristen McGovern from NYC. Those two were fabulous in their presentation on restaurant weeks and such. So
this is great. All right. We're coming up on the half hour. Let's round it out. I'm going to give you each closing thoughts. PACE is here, partnership alignment, community engagement. I believe it's come into its own. As you know, you hear me say often, I think the future of tourism is about engaged communities to take an active role in collectively shaping their future. Starts with stakeholders, moves out to citizens and constituents. Final thoughts on PACE and membership. Remember talking to 600 DMOs worldwide. So, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Wow. Well, I'd say take your place, your rightful place, which is, a lead, a pillar of our organizations, and lead this conversation within your organization and grow it. Because I think I look at it and say, if your organization hasn't identified that your members, your partners, your stakeholders, and your residents, if they don't see all of those folks as part of your community that you're educating, sharing, impacting, then you're the person that's going to be bringing that to your executive leadership team. So I hope that those that didn't join us this year will be there next year to share what it is that they know and their successes with us, and help us implement best practices to lead our organizations to success in the future and to the new what a DMO is going to be in this next several years to come.
I would almost just say ditto to what Polly said, but I would say also be genuine, continue to be in the community, continue to share that message, because it's a ripple effect. So you tell one person who becomes engaged and understands what you do, and they tell two people. And so it's important to not sit on your laurels. It should be an ongoing mission for every DMO across the globe. And it's something that everyone can participate in. It's not just membership or partnership. Your entire organization should be invested in community engagement. And if you can do that, then I think that you will reap huge benefit. And then as far as PACE goes, I hope that we get even more engagement from our colleague, because that's more information sharing that benefits all of us.
Okay.
So.
Well, listen, I can't thank you both enough, for diligently working on this for as long as you did, and to you and all your peers. I come lately to the PACE table, and I'm just so happy the table's set. It's brilliant. You got the world's attention. You're going to be talking about PACE next year. Come back and tell us about that when you're ready, and we'll talk about that agenda when we get closer. But in closing, just thanks a lot to you, both of you, and the team that helped you do this.